Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's live trading session. As always, if you have questions, please put those through on your screens, and I'll do my best to answer them over the course of the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. A couple of things going on. Obviously, we have CPI data up in about 7 to 8 minutes. And there's also a lot of news going through at the moment about Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX as well, if anybody has a particular interest in that particular space as well. So more the thing that I'll be focusing on during the course of today is the CPI number that's coming up. You can see or you can hear the CNBC in the background. At the moment, while we're waiting for that to come through, so I'll definitely keep an eye on that as we approach the announcement. As you can see from the Dow, and I'll just bring the Dow up now. Had a difficult morning. Had a difficult couple of days, to be honest with you. The markets are continuing to melt upwards over the last 2 to 3 days, and we're trading at a high now of about 34,115, which is the high that we've seen over the last number of days. If I just bring up a daily chart here, it's probably 2 or 3 weeks ago that we jumped above that number and traded up towards or a lot closer to the 35,000 level. But you can see that the majority of the trading over the last couple of weeks, possibly even 3 weeks, can't count the number of candlesticks there immediately, but the majority of the trading has been below this line. So I'm going to try now this is obviously an hourly chart. You can see this big move that we saw there on this particular day, which is going back to, I think, the 13th of December. So almost exactly a month ago today. So you've seen that movement up towards that sort of level. I'm probably going to look, just to put an order in here, probably around the 34,400 level. We saw some fairly dramatic movements on the back of announcements we saw over the last number of weeks. So I'm just going to put an order in there at 34,420. I know it's a million miles away from where we're trading now, about 300 pips, but just have an order in there because if there is an amount of short covering after this CPI number, the market could potentially balloon higher. And certainly the movements that we've seen over the last couple of days would suggest, to me at least, that there is some indication of what the number is going to be. As you know from my market comments this week, my trading as well, my belief has been firmly that the Fed will continue on this hawkish and aggressive rate hike policy, that there won't be any let up in it because it's been proven to not work in the past, it's been proven to fail. And so I'm expecting at the next meeting, which is at the end of this month, I'm fully expecting there to still be a 50 basis point increase. Now, if that happens, I think the rally that we've seen over the last number of days will dissipate very, very quickly. Excuse me, but for now, I think I have a cough like everybody else in this world at the moment. For now, the focus is on this CPI number. And any reaction that we may see to that. So looking at the trading over the last week or so, it would certainly suggest that the CPI number is going to be a little bit lower than people are expecting. I've seen forecasts of 6.6 and 6.5%, but there is certainly a suggestion that we're going to see something better. Based on the trading that we've seen over the last number of days and this slow push higher. I say slow, but it's also been very constant, the move higher. The DAX, as you'll know, which I have traded over the last couple of days, has probably been outperforming in terms of the indices, and has been very robust and very strong. And obviously, as you'll be aware, there have been some fairly big moves in the currency markets as well. So getting closer to this number now, around the 130 level. So let me just let's look back over some of the other markets and just what they're doing at this time. Saw a fairly dramatic spike in gold up towards the 1890 level. Again, gold is a market where we could see a significant move after this CPI data comes out. I'm just going to put another limit order in there, way above the market again. Not looking to, I'm just trying to catch one of the bigger moves that we might see. So I'm probably going to put this in just above the 1900 level. So just looking across there just to see where the majority of trading has been. So just a touch above that. So I'm just going to put an order in there at 1902. Again, a million miles away from the market, but there is a chance that we're going to get a fairly big move off of some of these numbers that will be coming through shortly. So just going back to the trading and how the markets are going at this particular point. The Dow's hovering there around that high that we've seen, starting to see a tick up in the euro, which is up to 107, 107.77 at the moment. Similar story with sterling, which is pushing higher to 121.60, pushing even higher now. So you're starting to see some big moves there in the currencies, just to the upside. Looking here, both, so the euro's gone above 108. The Dow still improving. Less than a minute to go now, I think, until we see the numbers coming through. So adding a little bit of volatility to these markets. The DAX, which I've already mentioned, had been overperforming over the last couple of days. Seen a bit of volatility there now in the Dow, up to new high for the day around 34,140. DAX isn't moving with. It moved higher this morning. I stopped out the trades that I had and just decided to wait until we see these numbers coming through. So I'm just going to open the Dow now. So more focused on that for this particular period. So we traded 34,160 very briefly there. I'm just going to bring this back down to a minute chart, and you can see that huge sell-off there in the Dow. So back all the way down to 34,700, 800. So big movements there just before this data really starts to hit. Just bought Dow futures there on this dip whilst the numbers coming through, and people are starting to identify with that number and read some sense into it. So seen a nice little pop since I took the trade. So I'm just going to close that around these levels. Took about I took about 100, 120 points out of that, or something fairly. Similar to that. Just going back to the market, sorry, got a little bit waylaid there. Hopefully you all took that trade, worked reasonably well for me. I think there was, let me just look at that, there was just 90 or 98 pips in that particular trade. So I'm just going to look for another particular entry point. So the CPI year over year came in at 6.5%, which was fairly close to the estimate. So I'm surprised surprised we didn't pop up. People were obviously looking for something a little bit better than we're seeing. It's a move in the same direction as people were expecting. I just think people were expecting something a little bit better. You see there with the DAX has come off probably 100 points from its high this morning. Currencies are back down to the levels probably that we just started talking at, and equally so where gold is still higher, but nowhere near those levels we were trading when I started talking a few minutes ago. So a good trade there on the CPI number. I was going to say the opening bell. So it'll be interesting to see what happens around the opening bell in about 55 minutes or so. The data is out there. Pretty much everything is coming in online. I'm looking at the year over year, the month over month. But whilst it's hitting the estimates, probably not the improvement that the moves in the market would have. Not the moves in the market that you might have anticipated when you look at the way that the market has traded over the last couple of days. So wouldn't really have done anything to save the trades that I took this morning, although one of those trades would be in profit at this particular point. We're seeing a bit of normality coming in back into the way that the markets are trading right now. So the Dow's trading back up. We're up there to just shy of 34,000 at this point. Obviously, pre-announcement, we traded up to 34,160. Gold is still moving higher. We're trading up to about 1892 at the time. The Dow back within touching distance of 34,000 as I'm talking. May well be that there'll be an opportunity for a paired trade this afternoon, both gold and Dow, if we continue to see this movement back up to the upside. Going to be really interesting, and 34,000 touched very briefly there in the Dow. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens between now and the opening bell, and then immediately after that opening bell. Definite signs that the Fed policy is working. Is there enough to suggest that there's a 25 basis point coming at the rate increase coming at the end of this month? I don't think so. I think we're hitting estimates, hitting targets, and these are economist targets. They're not necessarily, the Fed could possibly be looking for something slightly better than what we've seen. But gold is continuing to rally, so I'm going to leave my limit order in gold. I think my Dow order is so far away that I have a bit of time to cancel that, but I will cancel that fairly soon after I finish. Keep an eye on gold. There has been one trade there around the opening bell, around the CPI data that's worked well. And we're now ticking back up to those levels that we saw at the beginning, back there to above 34,500, very fast market. I think if we, and gold still pushing higher, 1897 at the moment, and a good chance now that my limit may get a trigger there. If we see move back up towards 34,150, I think I'm a seller at those levels, and we'll take that trade if we see that. We're 34,100 at the time. So just in terms of the trades for this week, and I know that I'm running out of time, it's been a disappointing week so far. There's 100 pips or so to come back on that last trade that I just did. I just put that in, and I'll continue to trade one trade at a time this afternoon, just looking for some solid direction in terms of where this market is moving. Obviously the week didn't get off to a good start on Monday and has been very patchy since then. Ideally, I'll see a bit of improvement between now and the close tomorrow. or certainly that's what I'll be looking for. The jobless claims numbers have just come out as well. Just looking back at the markets just before I leave you here, so the euro back above 108, so very close to these, and we're only talking less than 10 minutes since the CPI data came out. So we're very close now to the levels that we saw just before I started talking. So euro back above 108, sterling above 122. The Dow did push up to about 34,120, but is coming off again now. And gold has been up to 1898. But again, he is off for those levels at this particular point. So 100 pip movements very, very quickly on this market. It's very fast, not quite so jumpy. It's just so fast at this moment, and obviously a lot of differences of opinion as we move through this particular part of the session. So I'm gonna go away, digest this information myself. Thankfully there was a good trade during the live session, and what I'll do is revert to you on Telegram very shortly. If there are questions, as always, and you can do this at any stage during the week, if you want to email me, nick@bullandbearcap.com, then please do so, and I will respond to you as quickly as I possibly can. As I leave you here, gold is back down to 1895. The Dow has come off a little bit and is quite jumpy now between 34,020, 34,070. Sterling's just holding on to that 122 level, as is the euro, and the DAX, after dipping down to about 14,980, is back at 15,050. So I'll be back on Telegram very, very shortly, and we'll speak to you from there. Take care.